A carefree road trip in 2001 ended in tragedy when Jenny's mother and her friends vanished without explanation. At the center of it all was Liam, reckless, charming and blind to the danger his arrogance brought crashing down on them. Decades later, Jenny uncovered her mother's journal, letters, and photographs, piecing together a past her family had buried in silence. But just listen to how shocking the twist in this drama turned out to be, and why justice ultimately prevailed. The summer of 2001 was alive with the vibrancy of youth and ambition. Four friends, Liam, Jessica, Mark, and Sarah, set off from their small college town in Colorado, eager to embrace the open road. They were fresh out of their sophomore year, filled with dreams of adventure and the kind of camaraderie that only comes from shared experiences. Their destination was a music festival in California, a promise of sun, laughter, and unforgettable memories. Little did they know it would be the last trip they would ever take together. Liam, the de facto leader of the group, was enthusiastic and charming, always able to lighten the mood with a joke or a spontaneous dance move. Jessica, the pragmatic one, had a knack for organization and was the glue that held the group together. Mark was the jokester, with a talent for impersonations that could make anyone laugh. Lastly, there was Sarah, the quiet observer, whose gentle smile and thoughtful demeanor often masked a wealth of emotions. As they piled into Liam's old beat-up SUV, the air was thick with excitement. They sang along to the radio, racing through the winding mountain roads, the trees towering alongside them like guardians of their youthful dreams. But as day turned to night, the idyllic journey took a turn. A sudden storm rolled in, dark clouds swallowing the sun, and the once cheerful atmosphere shifted. "Should we pull over?" Jessica suggested, glancing nervously at the growing tempest outside. "Nah, we've got this. Just a little rain," Liam reassured, his grip tightening on the steering wheel. But as the rain began to pelt the windshield, the visibility dropped to nearly zero. The storm raged, and with it, Liam's confidence waned. A flash of lightning illuminated the road ahead, revealing a sign for a small, unmarked detour. "I think we should take that road," Liam said, his voice shaky. "Are you sure?" Sarah asked, her heart racing. "Trust me, we'll be fine," Liam insisted, turning the wheel sharply. They drove deeper into the woods, where the trees loomed ominously, their branches clawing at the sky. The storm was relentless, and soon they found themselves engulfed in darkness, the only sound being the rain beating down relentlessly. It happened in an instant. One moment, they were laughing. The next, the SUV skidded on a slick patch of mud. Panic surged through the vehicle as Liam fought to regain control. "Hold on," he shouted, but it was too late. The SUV veered off the road, crashing through the underbrush and flipping over. Everything went black. 22 years later, in a small town in Virginia, Jenny Collins stood before a dusty storage unit she had inherited from her late grandmother. It was a nondescript building, tucked away at the back of a forgotten lot. She had spent weeks sorting through her grandmother's belongings, each item an echo of the past, but nothing prepared her for what she would find inside this particular unit. With a deep breath, Jenny fumbled with the rusty lock, finally prying the door open. The smell of mildew, mixed with nostalgia, hit her like a wave. Inside, boxes piled haphazardly were labeled with names she barely recognized. Old friends of her mother's, remnants of life once lived. As she began to sift through the contents, Jenny found a weathered journal. The leather cover was cracked, and the pages were yellowed with age. Intrigued, she opened it, her heart racing as she recognized her mother's handwriting scrawled across the pages. As she flipped through, she discovered entries about a road trip taken long ago, filled with excitement and hopes for the future. But as she continued reading, her heart sank. The tone-shifted entries grew darker, filled with fear and confusion. "We were lost," one entry read. "I don't know what happened. We were just trying to find our way back." Jenny's breath caught in her throat as she realized these were not just memories. They were the last words of her mother and her friends. Racing thoughts filled her mind. Why had her mother never spoken of this trip? What had truly happened to her? The questions swirled, igniting an unsettling emotion within her: anger. How could her mother keep such a monumental part of her life hidden? Jenny slammed the journal shut, her heart pounding in her chest. She stepped back, overwhelmed by the weight of the discovery. The journal slipped from her fingers and fell to the ground, pages fluttering open to reveal another entry that caught her eye. It spoke of a secret, something that had been buried away for years. Her mind raced as she recalled the stories of her mother's past, how she had often mentioned her friends from college, but never went into detail about them. The secrets were starting to unravel, and Jenny felt a determination rising within her. She needed to uncover the truth behind her mother's silence. As she gathered her thoughts, a sudden realization hit. This wasn't just about her mother. It was about those who had vanished alongside her, the friends who had been an integral part of that trip. They deserved to be remembered, to have their stories told. With a resolve she hadn't felt in years, Jenny made a decision. She would investigate. She would delve into the mystery of that road trip and learn what had happened to her mother and her friends. The answers lay buried beneath layers of time and silence, but she was determined to find them. Jenny's pulse quickened as she left the storage unit, the journal clutched tightly in her hands. It was time to uncover the truth. It was time to confront the shadows of the past. Jenny sat cross-legged on the floor of her grandmother's storage unit, surrounded by the ghostly silence of long-forgotten treasures. The dim light streamed through the cracked door, casting slanted shadows over the dust motes that danced lazily in the air. Her fingers traced the weathered cover of the journal, the leather cracked and faded, a palpable echo of the past whispering to her. Each breath felt heavy with anticipation and dread, as if the very air around her held secrets waiting to be unearthed. She opened the journal carefully, the spine creaking in protest, revealing pages stained with age and emotion. The first entry, penned in her mother's familiar script, was dated just days before the trip. Jenny's heart raced as she read her mother's words, filled with excitement and a hint of anxiety. Her mother had spoken of packing bags, playlists, and the thrill of adventure, but there was an undercurrent of something darker, a foreshadowing of the storm that would irrevocably alter their lives. "I can't believe we're finally doing this. Asterisk, asterisk," the entry exclaimed. "Liam has convinced all of us to go to that crazy festival. I'm terrified of the drive, but Jessica says it will be fine. I trust her. She always knows what to do. I just hope we don't kill each other in the car." Asterisk, asterisk. Jenny frowned, her stomach twisting as she imagined her mother as a carefree college student, laughing with friends, oblivious to the fate that awaited them. Flipping through the pages, the tone shifted dramatically as she reached the middle of the journal. More entries spoke of growing tension within the group, hints of disagreements, and a palpable sense of unease. It was as if the joyful anticipation had been overshadowed by a creeping darkness. "The car broke down today on the way to the festival. Liam was so confident he could fix it, but we ended up stranded on the side of the road. Jessica was furious and Mark tried to lighten the mood, but Sarah just sat quietly, staring off into the distance. I could feel something was wrong, but no one wanted to talk about it." Asterisk, asterisk. Jenny's hands trembled as she absorbed each word. It was becoming clear that the road trip was not just a simple adventure. It had morphed into something far more complicated and fraught with tension. The camaraderie she had once envisioned was fracturing under the weight of unspoken fears. She could barely fathom the emotions swirling around her mother and her friends, the dynamics shifting like shadows in the night. A sudden noise pulled her from her thoughts, a soft rustling that echoed in the stillness. Startled, she glanced around the dimly lit unit, her heart pounding in her chest. Was someone else there? The shadows seemed to deepen, and for a moment she felt as though the very walls of the unit were closing in around her. Gathering her courage, she called out, "Hello, asterisk, asterisk." The word felt inadequate, swallowed by the silence. The rustling stopped. A shiver ran down her spine. She stood, her instincts on high alert, and edged toward the source of the sound. As she moved, her foot brushed against something, a small box tucked away in the corner. She crouched down, pulling it toward her, the lid creaking as she opened it. Inside lay a collection of faded photographs, each image a snapshot of moments long past, many featuring her mother and the friends she had never known. In one photo, they were standing in front of a dilapidated gas station, smiles wide and carefree. Liam was striking a playful pose, his arm draped over Jessica's shoulder, while Mark made a goofy face in the background. Sarah stood slightly apart, a soft smile gracing her lips, her eyes sparkling with a hint of mischief. This was a side of her mother that Jenny had never seen, a glimpse into a time before secrets and shadows had clouded their lives. With each photograph, Jenny felt herself being pulled deeper into their world. She couldn't shake the feeling that these images held answers, pieces of a puzzle she was desperate to complete. Yet alongside this growing fascination was a gnawing fear. What had happened to them? How had they vanished without a trace? As she sifted through the photographs, a slip of paper fell from the bottom of the box. She picked it up, her breath hitching as she recognized her mother's handwriting. It was a note written hastily, as if her mother had been racing against time. "If you find this, please forgive me. I never meant for it to end like this. I should have listened to my instincts. Something is wrong, and I don't know how to fix it. I'm scared. I can't let them find out." Asterisk, asterisk. Jenny felt her heart race, the weight of the note heavy in her hands. What had her mother feared? What had she kept hidden from her? The tension in the air felt thicker now, almost suffocating. She could feel the anger bubbling up inside her, the frustration at her mother for not confiding in her, for leaving her with more questions than answers. Determined, she tucked the note into her pocket and shifted her focus back to the journal. She needed to know more. As she continued reading, the entries became increasingly frantic. Her mother described a storm that had rolled in suddenly during their drive, a tempest that matched the turmoil brewing within the group. "We were caught in it, rain pounding against the windshield, lightning illuminating the night. Liam kept insisting we push through, but Jessica wanted to stop. Mark was making jokes to ease the tension, but I could see the fear in Sarah's eyes. I felt it too. The storm felt alive, like it was trying to tear us apart." Asterisk, asterisk. Jenny's pulse quickened as she immersed herself in the tumultuous narrative. The storm was more than just a physical manifestation. It was a catalyst, forcing the group to confront their differences and fears. The journal hinted at arguments, confessions, and a growing chasm between her mother and Liam, the self-proclaimed leader. Something happened that night. I don't know how to explain it, but the darkness crept in, and we all felt it. I wish I could say we were brave, but we weren't. We were scared, and it tore us apart. Asterisk, asterisk. The final entries were fragmented, filled with panic and disjointed thoughts. Jenny felt as though she were reading a script for a horror film, each line pulling her further into a nightmare. Her mother's last entry ended abruptly, a jagged edge of ink where the pen had slipped, leaving a haunting emptiness. Feeling overwhelmed, Jenny closed the journal. She needed to take a moment to process everything, to let the weight of her mother's words settle. The memories of the past swirled in her mind, intertwining with her own emotions, grief for the mother she had lost, anger at the secrets she had kept, and a fierce determination to uncover the truth. Suddenly, a thought struck her. What if the other friends had left behind their own stories? She had to find out if any of them were still alive, if they had any answers to offer. Jenny's heart raced with the thought. She couldn't do this alone. She needed to reach out to them, to delve into the past together. With renewed purpose, she stood and began to gather the photographs in the journal, tucking them carefully into her bag. She would return to the storage unit. This was just the beginning. Each clue she uncovered would bring her closer to understanding what had happened on that fateful trip. As she stepped out of the storage unit and into the sunlight, a gust of wind swept past her, rustling the leaves and carrying with it the faintest hint of a storm on the horizon. Jenny paused, glancing back at the shadowy interior, a mix of anticipation and dread swirling within her. She was ready to confront the ghosts of the past, to face the truth that lay hidden beneath layers of time. And so, with a heart full of questions and a mindset on discovery, Jenny took her first steps toward unraveling the mystery of her mother's vanishing, a journey that would lead her down paths of sorrow, anger, and ultimately hope. Jenny sat cross-legged on the floor of her modest apartment, the journal open on her lap, its pages yellowed with age. The summer light filtered through the window, casting a warm glow over her surroundings, yet the cheerful atmosphere felt starkly out of place against the weight of the words she had just read. Each entry from her mother, filled with both nostalgia and dread, pulled her deeper into a past she had only known in fragments. "Something's not right," her mother had written in a shaky hand, a line that echoed in Jenny's mind. She could feel the pulse of unresolved emotions thrumming in her chest. The journal held the promise of answers, yet it also carried the burden of truths that might shatter the memories she had of her mother. With a deep breath, Jenny forced herself to focus on the last entry. The words twisted together, revealing a mix of excitement and foreboding. Her mother had mentioned a fight among the friends, a rift that had opened like a chasm just before the storm. Liam was too reckless, and Jessica. She's trying to hold everyone together, but I can feel the tension. Mark just jokes around, but there's something he's not saying. Jenny's heart raced. Was this the cause of their disappearance? Could something as mundane as a disagreement have spiraled into something so sinister? The thought made her stomach churn. Clutching the journal to her chest, she glanced around her apartment, the walls suddenly feeling too close, too suffocating. Determined to unravel the mystery, she rose and paced, her mind racing through the possibilities. The journal mentioned a specific location in an old storage unit in Virginia, where some of their belongings had been kept. Perhaps, just perhaps, it held the key to understanding what had happened that summer. With a surge of resolve, Jenny grabbed her phone and began searching for directions. The storage unit's address was embedded in her mother's notes, a breadcrumb leading her back to the past. An hour later, she was in her car, the engine humming beneath her as she drove toward a town that had long since faded from her mind. The open road stretched ahead, flanked by lush greenery that swayed in the light summer breeze, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing within her. As she neared the small town, a wave of nostalgia washed over her. Memories of childhood visits flooded back picnics in the park, laughter echoing through the streets and the warmth of family gatherings. But today, those memories felt distant, overshadowed by the grim purpose of her visit. The storage facility loomed ahead like an ancient sentinel, its weathered exterior and peeling paint whispering secrets. Jenny parked her car, her heart pounding as she stepped out. The air was thick with the scent of earth and rust, and a sense of foreboding settled over her like a shroud. She approached the office, where a tired-looking woman sat behind the counter. "Hi, I'm looking for Unit 12B, Jenny said, her voice steady despite the tremor underlying her words. The woman glanced up, her expression shifting from indifference to curiosity. "Unit 12B? That's been empty for years. Didn't think anyone would come back for it." Jenny swallowed hard, the implications of those words hanging in the air. "Can I see it?" "Sure. Just sign this waiver." The woman slid a clipboard across the counter, her eyes assessing Jenny with a mix of skepticism and intrigue. Once the paperwork was completed, she handed Jenny a set of keys, her gaze lingering a moment longer. "You might want to be careful in there. It's a bit of a mess." Jenny nodded, a knot tightening in her stomach. The woman's warning echoed in her mind as she walked toward the unit, the keys jangling ominously in her pocket. She hesitated at the door, feeling the weight of history pressing down on her. With a deep breath, she turned the key and pushed the door open. The hinges creaked, and dust motes danced in the dim light. Inside the unit was a chaotic jumble of boxes, old furniture, and forgotten trinkets. The air smelled stale and musty, as if it held on to the memories of years gone by. Jenny stepped inside, her heart racing as she scanned the room. Each item felt like a piece of a puzzle, waiting to reveal its secrets. She moved cautiously, her fingers brushing against the rough surfaces of boxes. One marked Liam caught her eye, and she knelt to examine it. The box was heavy, filled with old clothes, a few books, and a collection of photographs. As she sifted through the contents, a sense of familiarity washed over her. These were the echoes of a life once vibrant and full of promise. The photographs were a bittersweet reminder of happier times. Jenny paused at a picture of the four friends, arms slung around each other, faces lit up with laughter at the festival they had planned to attend. She could almost hear the music playing in the background, the thrill of adventure coursing through their veins. Yet the joy of the moment was tainted by the knowledge of what lay ahead. "Why didn't you tell me?" Jenny whispered to the silence around her, her voice barely rising above the dust settling in the air. She felt an ache in her chest, a longing for answers, for closure. With determination, she moved to another box, one labeled Jessica. Inside, she found notes, sketches, and a diary filled with the same meticulous handwriting her mother had. Jenny flipped through the pages, her heart racing as she uncovered fragments of Jessica's life, the dreams she had, the fears she expressed, and the moments of doubt that had plagued her during the trip. One entry stood out. "I'm scared, the tension is palpable, and Liam's insistence on pushing forward feels reckless. I want us to have fun, but—" The words trailed off, and Jenny could feel the weight of Jessica's fear echoing in her own heart. What had happened to change their carefree adventure into a nightmare? As she continued to sift through the boxes, her mind raced with questions. Had Liam's impulsiveness led them into danger? What had Jessica meant by the tension? And where was Sarah in all of this? The pieces felt disjointed, like fragments of a shattered mirror, reflecting truths she wasn't ready to confront. Suddenly, a glint of metal caught her eye from the corner of the unit. Jenny moved toward it, her pulse quickening. It was a small, intricately designed locket, half buried under a pile of old clothes. She picked it up, brushing away the dust, and opened it to reveal two small photographs inside. One of her mother, young and smiling, and the other of a man Jenny didn't recognize. A jolt of recognition coursed through her. The man in the photograph bore a striking resemblance to someone she had seen in her mother's journal, a name she had noted in the margins. Ethan. Who was he? And what role had he played in this tangled web of friendship and betrayal? Jenny's mind raced as she clutched the locket, feeling the weight of the past pressing down on her. The questions swirled like a storm inside her, demanding answers, demanding action. She wasn't just uncovering the story of her mother and her friends. She was digging into the heart of a mystery that had haunted her family for over 2 decades. With newfound determination, she took a step back, scanning the unit once more. There had to be more clues hidden among the chaos. The storm of emotions that had brewed within her transformed into a fierce resolve. She would uncover the truth no matter how painful it might be. The laughter that had once filled the air with joy would not be forgotten. It would be honored through the pursuit of answers. As she continued to search, the shadows of the past began to lift, revealing a path forward. The storm had not only changed the course of that summer, but had also shaped the lives of those left behind. Jenny was ready to confront the ghosts of her mother's past, ready to piece together the story that had been buried for far too long. The mission had begun, and she would stop at nothing to find the truth. Jenny's heart raced as she sifted through the contents of the storage unit, each item a fragment of a past that felt both foreign and intimately familiar. The air was thick with the scent of dust and forgotten memories, the kind that clung to her skin and made her feel alive with the weight of history. She ran her fingers over the yellowed pages of a journal, the edges frayed and delicate, and caught snippets of laughter caught in the ink. It was a time capsule of carefree days, but also a harbinger of the darkness that had enveloped her mother and her friends. She paused to study a photograph, its edges curling and faded. In it, Liam stood with an arm slung over Sarah's shoulder, his grin infectious. Mark, with his signature, goofy pose, held a half-eaten sandwich toward the camera, while Jessica stood off to the side with her arms crossed, a bemused smile playing on her lips. The sun shone brightly in the background, casting a golden hue that seemed a world away from the dim confines of the storage unit. Jenny could almost hear the laughter in the air, the carefree banter that had once filled the spaces between them. But the locket, still tucked in her pocket, weighed heavily on her mind. The image of her mother with Ethan had stirred something deep within her, a sense of betrayal, a longing for answers. Who was he? Why had her mother kept this a secret? The questions gnawed at her, and the urgency to find out the truth propelled her forward. "Jenny," a voice called from the entrance. She turned to see Tom, the storage unit manager, stepping into the dim light, his silhouette framed by the doorway. "I didn't want to interrupt, but I thought I'd check in. How's it going?" "Just looking through some old things." She forced a smile, but it felt brittle, as though it might shatter under the weight of her discovery. Tom stepped closer, his brow furrowing as he surveyed the clutter. "You know, I used to know those kids, the ones who vanished. They were something else, full of life, always scheming up new adventures." Jenny's breath caught. "You knew them?" "Yeah, back in '01, he replied, rubbing the back of his neck. "I was working at the gas station where they stopped for snacks before heading out. They were so excited talking about the festival. I remember thinking they were a little reckless, but they had that youthful spark. Then, nothing. Do you remember anything else? Anything unusual? She felt a flicker of hope, like a candle in the dark. Tom hesitated, his gaze drifting to the floor. Not really, just the usual banter. But I remember Liam. He was the one pushing everyone to go faster, to take risks. I had a bad feeling about him, if I'm honest. He seemed too reckless for his own good. Jenny's heart sank as Tom's words echoed her mother's unease. What about the others? Did they seem worried or scared? He shook his head. Not at all. They seemed like they were on top of the world. But sometimes when you're young and invincible, you can't see the danger lurking around the corner. A chill crept down Jenny's spine as she recalled the storm that had struck during their trip. Did they mention anything about their plans? Like where they were headed? Just that they were excited for the festival. They had a map spread out on the counter, pointing out different stops they wanted to make along the way. Fun stuff, you know, but I didn't pay much attention. I had customers waiting. He shrugged, his expression shifting to one of regret. I wish I'd asked more questions. Jenny nodded, a sense of urgency pressing down on her. Thank you for sharing that. It helps. Listen, if you need anything else, or if you want to talk more about them, just let me know. He stepped back, giving her space, but she could sense his lingering concern. Once Tom left, she returned her focus to the storage unit, determined to unearth more about the friends who had vanished. She rummaged through boxes, her fingers brushing against items that felt like ghosts of the past. A t-shirt emblazoned with a band logo, a faded map, and a collection of mixtapes that spoke to the music they had loved. Each piece was a reminder of who they had been, but the deeper she dug, the more the shadows loomed. Her pulse quickened when she spotted a small cardboard box tucked away in a corner. It was unmarked, almost as if it had been hidden intentionally. She pulled it into the light and carefully opened the flaps. Inside, she found a stack of letters, tied together with a frayed piece of string in a small, battered notebook. Jenny's hands trembled as she untied the string, the letters whispering secrets of youth and longing. She unfolded the top letter, the handwriting unmistakably Jessica's, and began to read. Dear Liam, it began, I'm not sure how to say this, but I've been feeling uneasy about our trip. I know you're excited, but there's something about the way you're pushing us all that worries me. I love our adventures, but I can't shake this feeling. Jenny's breath caught in her throat. The words spilled out like a torrent, each line revealing the cracks in their friendship, the hidden fears that had gone unspoken. It was like peeling back layers of an onion, revealing the fragility beneath the bravado. As she read on, the tone shifted. I know you don't want to hear this, but please listen. We need to be careful. The storm is coming, and I'm scared we might not make it through. Jenny's heart raced as the realization settled in. Jessica had felt it, the tension, the fear, and yet they had all ignored the warning signs, blinded by the excitement of youth. The storm had come, but not just in the form of rain and thunder. It had unleashed chaos, tearing them apart and leaving only silence in its wake. With shaking hands, she flipped through the remaining letters, each one a testament to Jessica's growing worry. Liam's responses were dismissive, filled with bravado and charm, as if he could will away the darkness that loomed ever closer. The last letter, written just days before they vanished, sent a shiver down her spine. Liam, please, I'm begging you. Let's talk about this. I can't ignore the bad vibes anymore. Something feels wrong. We need a plan, not just reckless abandon. I care too much about all of us to let this go. Jenny closed her eyes, overwhelmed by the weight of her discovery. The last remnants of their friendship had been shattered by a storm of both nature and their own making. She felt a surge of anger at Liam for his recklessness, at the group for not listening to Jessica, and at the universe for allowing such a tragedy to unfold. Determined, she clutched the letters to her chest and stood up, ready to confront the truth. She couldn't unearth the past without acknowledging the pain it carried. The road to discovery would be fraught with obstacles, but Jenny was more resolute than ever. She would find the answers, no matter the cost. As she exited the storage unit, the sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that danced like specters across the pavement. The wind whispered secrets, urging her onward. With each step, she felt the weight of her mother's legacy bearing down on her. but also the promise of resolution. She would uncover the truth behind the vanished friends. She would confront the ghosts of the past and bring them to light. The journey was just beginning, and she was ready to face whatever darkness lay ahead. The sunlight streamed through the dusty window of the storage unit, casting long shadows across the scattered remnants of Jenny's mother's past. An unease settled in her stomach as she stared at the locket in her palm, the image of her mother and the unknown man, Ethan, staring back at her. Who was he? And why had he been important enough to be captured in her mother's most cherished piece of jewelry? With a deep breath, Jenny placed the locket down on the makeshift table of boxes and bags, determination flooding her veins. She couldn't shake the feeling that the answers she sought were hidden within the clutter surrounding her. The journal had painted a vivid portrait of her mother's road trip, but the entries only scratched the surface of a story that felt increasingly complex and tangled. As she rifled through the boxes, she stumbled upon a small, weathered suitcase. The leather was cracked, the brass latch tarnished, but still functional. Jenny felt a rush of excitement as she knelt to open it. Inside, she found an assortment of items: colorful tank tops, a faded map marked with their route, and a stack of postcards from various stops along the way. Each postcard bore an image of sun-soaked beaches and scenic vistas, reminders of the carefree adventure they had embarked upon. She picked up a postcard from a place called Blue Ridge Summit, a handwritten note from Sarah's elegant script spilling across the back. Wish you were here. Can't wait for the next leg of our trip. Love you all. Jenny's heart ached at the sight of Sarah's name. The quiet girl who had always kept her emotions close, who had likely shared laughter and secrets with her friends, now felt like a ghost from a distant memory. Suddenly the door creaked, and Jenny turned to see Tom stepping inside, his expression a mix of curiosity and concern. "Hey, I thought I'd check on you," he said, brushing his hands on his jeans. "You doing all right?" "Yeah, just going through things," Jenny replied, forcing a smile. "It's overwhelming, you know." Tom nodded, stepping closer to the clutter. "I can only imagine that trip. It was a big deal for everyone, especially for your mom." His voice lowered as if speaking the names of the lost friends could somehow summon their spirits. "I still remember the last time I saw them. They were so full of life, laughing and joking. It's hard to believe they just vanished." Jenny looked up at him, her brow furrowing. "What do you remember about that last day?" Tom leaned against the wall, crossing his arms as he searched for the right words. "It was a stormy night. They came in for gas, but there was something in the air. Tension, maybe. Liam was joking around, but Jessica had this look in her eyes, like she was holding back something important." "Important?" Jenny echoed, a spark of interest igniting within her. "What do you mean?" "Just, I remember her looking at Liam like she wanted to tell him to stop. They were all caught up in the excitement of the trip, but it felt like she was the only one who saw how reckless it was getting." Tom's eyes clouded with memory. "I had the feeling that they weren't going to make it much longer on the road, but I didn't know how to say anything. It was none of my business." Jenny's heart raced as she processed his words. Jessica had been the voice of reason, the one trying to keep them grounded amidst Liam's impulsiveness. "Did you see them leave?" "Yeah," Tom said, pushing off the wall. "They fueled up, and then they were gone. I remember thinking I should have said something, but they were so excited. I figured it was just part of their adventure." A knot formed in Jenny's chest. And then, nothing, just silence. Tom nodded solemnly. "I didn't hear about them again until I saw the news. It was devastating. No clues, no signs of where they went. Just an empty road in a storm." Jenny's mind raced. She needed to know more. "Did anyone else see them leave? Anyone at the gas station?" "Not that I know of. But there were a few other travelers, a couple of truckers who might have crossed paths with them. I can give you their names if you want. Maybe they can offer more insights." "I would appreciate that," Jenny replied, a flicker of hope igniting within her. Any lead could help. As Tom scribbled down the names, Jenny returned to the suitcase, her fingers brushing against the postcards again. They felt like pieces of a puzzle she was desperate to solve. With renewed vigor, she began to sort through the items, her mind whirling with questions about the road trip and Liam's impulsive nature. Suddenly, she pulled out a small envelope tucked beneath the clothes. It was addressed to Jessica, the handwriting unmistakable. Her heart raced as she opened it, revealing several letters sealed with wax. The first letter was dated just days before the trip, the ink slightly smudged but legible. Asterisk, Dear Jess, it read. Asterisk. I know you're worried about this trip, but it's going to be amazing. These are the moments we'll remember forever. Don't let fear hold you back. Liam will keep us safe. Trust him. Trust us. We're all in this together. Asterisk. Jenny's breath caught in her throat. The words echoed Jessica's concerns, yet they also held a sense of naive hope. She flipped through the letters, each one revealing more about the group's dynamics and the pressures they faced, particularly Jessica's struggle to balance her apprehensions with the desire to belong. The last letter chilled her bones, the tone shifting dramatically. Asterisk, Jess, asterisk, it began. Asterisk, I don't think we should go. I've had a bad feeling since we left. It's like the storm is following us. I don't want to ruin the trip, but I need you to promise you'll listen if things get weird. I can't shake this feeling. Please, let's be careful. Asterisk, Jenny's heart raced. Had Jessica sensed the danger even before it had arrived? What's that? Tom asked, peering over her shoulder. It's a letter from Jessica, Jenny replied, her voice shaky. She was worried about the trip. Tom's brow furrowed as he read over her shoulder. That's unsettling. She had a feeling something was off. I need to figure out what happened, Jenny said, a sense of urgency gripping her. This wasn't just a road trip. There were real fears, and they weren't all just having fun. Do you want me to help? Tom offered, his eyes earnest. I can reach out to those travelers, see if they can share anything. Maybe they witnessed something. Jenny nodded, grateful for the support. Yes, please. I can't do this alone. As Tom took the letters from her, Jenny's mind swirled with thoughts of Liam, Jessica, Mark, and Sarah. Each one had played a role in this narrative, and their stories were inexplicably intertwined. She needed to uncover every thread to understand how their vibrant lives had turned into whispers of the past. Let's meet back here tomorrow, Jenny suggested, her voice steadying. I'll keep digging through this stuff, and maybe we can start piecing together what we find. Sounds good, Tom agreed, a hint of determination in his tone. We'll get to the bottom of this. As Tom left the storage unit, Jenny felt a sense of purpose wash over her. She wasn't just uncovering the secrets of her mother's past. She was igniting a fire within herself. A drive to unearth not just the truth of what had happened that fateful summer, but also to honor the memories of the friends who had vanished into the storm. With renewed focus, she dove back into the suitcase, each item drawing her closer to the echoes of laughter and the shadows of fear that had accompanied that road trip. The sun began to set outside, casting a golden glow over the chaotic remnants, and Jenny knew she was on the cusp of something significant. The answers were buried here, waiting for her to dig deeper. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows across the cluttered interior of the storage unit. Jenny sat cross-legged on the cold concrete floor, surrounded by boxes filled with memories that felt both familiar and foreign. Her heart raced as she flipped through the worn pages of her mother's journal, the ink fading but the emotions still palpable. Each entry drew her deeper into the past, revealing fragments of her mother's struggles and the dynamics that had once bound the group of friends together. Why didn't you tell me? Jenny whispered to the air, her voice trembling as she closed the journal, feeling the weight of unspoken secrets pressing down on her. The dim light from her phone illuminated the worn-out pages, highlighting her mother's neat handwriting. Each entry painted a picture of a carefree summer filled with laughter and dreams, but it also hinted at the underlying tensions that had begun to unravel their friendship. As she picked up a stack of photographs, Jenny's fingers trembled. The first image showed the four of them, Liam, Jessica, Mark, and Sarah, grinning widely, sun-kissed and carefree, with the open road stretching behind them. In that moment, they were invincible. But as she sifted through the next few photos, the smiles faded, replaced by expressions of concern and unease. There was one of Jessica, her eyes darting to the side as if sensing a storm brewing, and another of Liam, his confident grin betraying an arrogance that now seemed foolish in hindsight. Is that how you saw it? Jenny murmured, glancing at a photo of Liam leaning against the car, arms crossed, exuding an air of bravado. Did her mother ever truly believe in his leadership, Or had she simply followed him out of loyalty? The questions spiraled in her mind, each one more insistent than the last. The sound of footsteps echoed through the storage facility, pulling Jenny from her thoughts. She turned to see Tom, the storage unit manager, approaching with a clipboard in hand. His expression was unreadable, a blend of curiosity and caution. "Still digging through the past?" he asked, his voice low and gravelly. Jenny nodded, her heart racing. "I'm trying to piece together what happened to my mom and her friends. The more I find, the more questions I have." Tom shifted his weight, glancing around the room as if searching for something hidden among the dust and shadows. "You know, sometimes it's better to leave certain things buried. Not everything needs to be uncovered." His words sent a chill down her spine. She studied his face, searching for clues about how much he really knew. "You were there when they disappeared, weren't you? You saw them just before they left." Tom's gaze flickered, revealing a flicker of discomfort. "I did. They seemed excited, but there was tension in the air too. You could feel it, like a storm brewing on the horizon." "Jessica was worried about Liam," Jenny said, her voice gaining strength. "She felt like he was pushing them too hard." Tom nodded slowly, his expression softening. "That's right. I remember her looking back at me as they drove off. It was like she knew something was off. But Liam, he was so confident, so sure of himself. It was hard to argue with that kind of energy." "Did you see Liam and Jessica argue?" Jenny pressed, desperate for more insight into the dynamics that had led to their downfall. "No, nothing overt," Tom replied, rubbing the back of his neck. "But I could tell she had her reservations. And then there was Mark, always cracking jokes, trying to lighten the mood. It was like he was a buffer between them, keeping the peace. But sometimes laughter can't cover the cracks." Jenny's heart sank at the thought. Mark's humor, which had always been a source of comfort, now felt like a mask hiding deeper issues. "What about Sarah? Did she ever say anything?" "Sarah was the quiet one," Tom said, his voice reflective. "She watched, always observing, never really part of the chaos. I remember her sitting in the back seat, her eyes distant, like she was somewhere else entirely." Jenny felt a pang of sorrow for Sarah, the quiet observer, lost in a whirlwind of chaos. "I need to talk to her," she declared, determination surging within her. Tom raised an eyebrow. "You think she'll have answers?" "I don't know, but she must have seen something. If I can find her, maybe I can make sense of this." Tom's gaze softened, and for a brief moment, Jenny saw a flicker of empathy. "Just be careful, Jenny. Some truths are harder to bear than others." With a nod of thanks, Jenny returned to her exploration, her mind racing with possibilities. She found more photographs, each one a snapshot of their journey. Laughing at roadside diners, setting up a tent under the stars, and the last blurry image of the storm clouds gathering ominously in the distance. She could almost hear the laughter echoing from the past, but it was tinged with sadness, a reminder of what was lost. Hours passed as she pieced together the fragments of her mother's life. The journal entry spoke of late-night conversations, where dreams were shared and fears whispered into the darkness. One entry, dated just before the storm, caught her breath. "This trip was supposed to be our escape, a chance to find ourselves. But I can't shake the feeling that something is about to happen. Liam is reckless, and I worry that we're not prepared for what lies ahead. If only I could make them see." Asterisk. Jenny's heart raced. It was clear now that Jessica had sensed the danger even before the storm hit. There were layers of complexity to their friendship that had long been hidden beneath the surface, and Jenny felt an urgent need to unravel them. As she collected the scattered items, a glint of metal caught her eye from the corner of the unit. Curiosity piqued, she crawled over to uncover an old rusted keychain, its surface scratched and tarnished. It was heavy in her hand, and as she examined it, she noticed a small tag attached. With a jolt, she recognized the initials. LB. "Liam," she whispered, the realization washing over her like a cold wave. What had this keychain opened? Was it a car key? A locker? Her heart raced with excitement and dread. Just then her phone buzzed, snapping her back to reality. It was a message from a number she didn't recognize. "I know what happened to them. Meet me at the old gas station tomorrow at noon." Asterisk. A chill ran down Jenny's spine. The gas station, where Tom had last seen them. Who could this be? Was it someone who had witnessed the events unfold? Or perhaps someone who had been part of the story all along? With renewed determination, she tucked the keychain into her pocket and stood up. The shadows in the storage unit seemed to close in around her, but she was no longer afraid. The pieces were coming together, and she was ready to confront the past, no matter how painful the truth might be. As she exited the storage unit, the evening air was thick with anticipation. Tomorrow held the promise of answers, and Jenny felt a surge of hope. She would find Sarah, uncover the truth behind Liam's bravado, and finally bring closure to the memories that had haunted her family for too long. With each step, she felt the weight of her mother's legacy guiding her forward, and she was determined to honor it, no matter what lay ahead. Jenny stood at the threshold of the gas station, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. The dilapidated sign creaked in the gentle breeze, the letters faded and peeling, a ghost of its former self. It was here, where the four friends had shared laughter and fleeting moments of unadulterated joy, that the weight of the past pressed heavily on her chest. She could almost hear their voices dancing in the air, vibrant and carefree, mingling with the flavored soda and greasy snacks that had once filled the shelves. With each step forward, Jenny felt her heart quicken. The cryptic message from the unknown source had left her with a mix of dread and curiosity. It felt like a summons she could not ignore. She pushed open the door, the rusty hinges groaning in protest, and stepped inside the dimly lit interior. Dust motes floated lazily in the shafts of light that pierced through the grimy windows. The cashier's counter, once a hub of activity, stood empty now, a layer of dust blanketing the surface. As she glanced around, Jenny's eyes caught sight of an old map tacked to the wall, its edges curled and yellowed with age. The routes traced on it were a reminder of the adventure that had been, their laughter echoing through the car, the playlist of their favorite songs blaring through the speakers. "Jenny!" A voice broke through her reverie, startling her. She turned to see Tom, the storage unit manager, stepping out from the back room, a concerned frown etched on his face. His presence grounded her amid the swirling memories. "Tom," she breathed, relief flooding through her. "You came." "Of course. I figured you'd need some company," he said, his tone light but laced with an undercurrent of seriousness. "I wasn't sure if you'd want to do this alone." "I don't," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I need answers. I thought maybe I could find something here." Tom nodded, his eyes scanning the room, as if the ghosts of the past might reveal themselves at any moment. The gas station was a popular stop for travelers back in the day. I've heard stories from folks who came through here. Some of them were about your friends. Jenny felt a shiver run down her spine. "What kind of stories?" "Strange happenings, arguments. Some locals said they saw them arguing outside just before the storm hit," he replied, his voice low. "But it's all hearsay, you know. Just whispers in a small town." "Whispers can hold a lot of truth," she said, her determination hardening. "I need to know what really happened." "Let's start by checking the old back room," Tom suggested, motioning towards a door at the far end of the station. "It hasn't been touched in years, but sometimes people leave things behind when they're in a hurry. Maybe there's something there." Jenny followed him, her heart racing with anticipation. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow space filled with dust-covered boxes and forgotten memorabilia. Old highway signs leaned against the walls, their colors dulled by time. A sense of nostalgia washed over her, but it was quickly replaced by urgency. They began rifling through the boxes, Jenny's hands trembling slightly as she opened one filled with faded photographs. She sifted through images of families posing in front of the gas station, laughter frozen in time, until she stumbled upon a snapshot that made her heart skip. It was a small group photo, 4 friends beaming at the camera, arms slung around each other, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in the distance. "Liam, Jessica, Mark, and Sarah," she whispered, the names spilling out like a prayer. The sight of them, so alive and carefree, felt like a punch to the gut. She could almost hear their laughter echoing in her ears. "This was taken here." Tom leaned closer, recognizing the faces. "They were just kids. It's hard to believe something so terrible happened to them, Jenny's eyes narrowed as she scrutinized the background of the photo. A figure loomed behind them, partially obscured by the shadows. "Who is that?" she asked, pointing to the silhouette. Tom squinted, his brow furrowing. "I can't say for sure. I've seen a few familiar faces around here, but no one stands out as particularly odd." Jenny's heart raced as she tucked the photograph into her pocket, a sense of urgency igniting within her. "We need to find out who this is. I have a feeling they're connected to what happened." "Let's keep looking," Tom said, his voice steady as he resumed his search. Minutes turned into hours as they combed through the remnants of the past, but the more they uncovered, the heavier the air felt. Old receipts, forgotten souvenirs, and even a half-burnt candle, all mundane objects that whispered of lives once filled with hopes and dreams. Yet none of them offered solid clues. "Wait," Jenny said suddenly, pulling out an unmarked envelope from a stack of papers. "This one looks different." She opened it carefully, revealing a collection of letters, yellowed with age. The first one was addressed to Jessica, written in a hurried scrawl. As she read, her eyes widened. "Jess, I'm worried about Liam. He's not himself, and I don't know how to talk to him about it. There's something he's not telling us." Her voice trembled as she continued. "I need you to keep an eye on him. Promise me you will." Tom's expression shifted from curiosity to concern as he leaned closer, absorbing the words. "That sounds serious. It's clear there was tension between them." Jenny flipped through the letters, discovering more fragments of Jessica's thoughts, each one filled with a growing sense of dread. "There's more," she said, her stomach churning. She felt like something bad was going to happen. Tom rubbed the back of his neck, concern etched on his face. It's almost as if she sensed the storm before it came. Jenny felt a chill crawl up her spine. "And what about Ethan? He's mentioned in the journal, but there's no letter from him here. Who was he to them?" Tom's brows knitted together in thought. It might be worth checking with some of the locals. They may remember him or know more about what was going on. "I think we should. Every piece of information brings us closer," Jenny said, a resolve forming within her. "Whatever happened that day, I need to confront it." As she tucked the letters safely into her bag, a sudden crack of thunder echoed outside, and the wind picked up, rattling the old windows. Tom glanced toward the door, the atmosphere thickening with an ominous energy. "Maybe we should head out before the storm hits," he suggested, glancing nervously at the darkening sky. "Not yet," Jenny replied, feeling a fierce determination rise within her. "I won't leave until I've uncovered everything. I need to know what happened to them, to my mom. I owe it to her." "Okay," Tom acquiesced, but there was a hint of hesitation in his voice. "Just be careful." They continued searching, but as the storm rolled in, the tension grew palpable. The wind howled outside, rattling the gas station like a warning bell. Just as Jenny began to feel overwhelmed, she caught sight of a small, dusty box tucked beneath a shelf. "Tom, help me with this," she called out, her heart racing with excitement. Together they pulled the box free, revealing a lock that had rusted over time. Jenny's heart pounded as she took a deep breath, her fingers trembling with anticipation. If this box held answers, she had to find a way to open it. "Do you have something to pry it open?" she asked, glancing at Tom. He rummaged through a nearby toolbox, finally producing a screwdriver. "Here, try this." With trembling hands, Jenny worked the screwdriver into the lock, her breath hitching as it clicked open. She lifted the lid slowly, revealing a trove of objects, a necklace, a small diary, and what appeared to be a collection of photographs. "Look at this," she said, pulling out the diary. It was small, the pages yellowed but intact. It might be Jessica's. Jenny flipped through the pages, her heart racing as she read snippets of Jessica's thoughts. Each entry was a glimpse into the turmoil brewing beneath the surface of their friendship, the weight of secrets and fears that had haunted them all. "I don't know how much longer I can keep pretending that everything is fine," she read aloud, her voice trembling. "Liam's becoming more reckless, and I'm afraid of what might happen if he doesn't slow down. There's something about Ethan that makes me uneasy." Tom's expression hardened. Ethan again. It's like he was a shadow over their relationship. As the storm raged outside, Jenny felt the pieces of the puzzle begin to fit together. The storm had not just been a literal force of nature, It had been a metaphor for the brewing chaos in their lives. "We're getting closer," she said, determination propelling her forward. "We have to find out who Ethan really was and what he meant to them." Just then a loud crash echoed from outside, shaking the building, and Jenny's heart seized in her chest. They exchanged a glance, the weight of unspoken fears hanging between them. "Let's get out of here," Tom urged, his voice steady but anxious. Jenny nodded, reluctantly placing the diary back in the box, knowing they would return for it. "We'll come back, I promise." As they hurried out of the gas station, the wind howled like a mournful spirit, and Jenny felt the shadows of the past closing in around her. She wasn't just seeking answers. She was diving deeper into a mystery that threatened to engulf her. And with every step she took, she was one step closer to uncovering the truth that had been buried for far too long.